looking at this afternoon, the abolishing of death penalty and defamation of the president's law. We are almost to the end of 2022. How do you describe the governance system of the UPN, knowing that they've just been in office 1 year and some months now?
We're very disappointed that they failed to attend to the serious the economy is still in crisis, the cost of living is still very high. Programs such as the program have been bungled, and our farming season has been threatened, and our food security has been affected. The CDF, which started as a of their program, hasn't really taken off. The releases of the monies and the usage is at very below minimum. As of November, there were those statistics issued by Finance that demonstrated that of the monies released, only 4% was used for CDF. Then we have had a huge crisis in the economic and social sectors. For example, we haven't had any medicines in hospitals, clinics and health centers. We have a huge shortages of medical supplies, laboratory reagents, and just failure of hospital equipment, for tests, the diagnostic tests. So it hasn't been a good year for our people. Prices of fuel, meal, sugar, cooking oil, are really unaffordable. People are saying this is the quietest Christmas they've ever had. The Christmas without the merry, and the New Year without the happy.
All right, Mr. Mwamba, let's also talk about some of the achievements that the UPND government have, done so far. I know they've one of the achievements, I think I can just mention two. They've introduced a free education. We are also able to see that they also employed recently, is it 11,000 health workers? Let's also talk about that, some of the achievements that you're able to see in this shortest period in your office.
Free education should be some of their achievements. That doesn't mean without serious teething problems. When we abolished, when we made it free education and abolished user fees, remember the students, our pupils and learners used to pay about 200 kwacha per term, 100 kwacha a year. Primary education, primary school and primary education from 2007. And it was to secondary schools, which you pay that's 100 kwacha a year in user fees. For boarding schools, they used to pay another 1,000 for boarding and lodging facilities. The difficulties and challenges have been that the releases are far too little to support the free education enterprise. So big schools that will have a budget of 1.2 million, they would raise money from the user fees for pupils and learners. No longer can afford that. The amount that the Ministry of Education uses to run schools, very little. In the health sector, like I said, where those releases meant for administrative fees, the administrators of hospitals and the health centers are requested to buy medicine from that money. That money is for cleaning hospitals, paying your electricity, water, that to look after you, not for you to pay for that. So in the health and education sector, that has been a problem, is that the releases are not matching to the needs of the school. I know many people talk about that the environment is freer, there's freedom of expression, and that people are free to move. I don't understand all that. Zambia still ranks as the most country, and it has been consistently so the last 20 years. The parameters of peace have never been threatened. Yes, we had cadres in bus stops and in isolated markets, but that can be a thing that there was no peace. The definition of peace then and existed before, and confirmed by international rankings on who we are as a country, whether we are violent, whether we are calm. All the rankings. The last 20 years, we've always been busy. The IMF bailout is said to be a success by the UPND. For us, we don't consider it such, because if you have a bailout, that would demand that you abolish subsidies, that you hike your electricity cost, connection cost, and the tariffs are increased. If you have an IMF bailout that says you have to pay, your FISI program has to be reduced from 2.8% of your GDP to 1%. For us, we don't think IMF. We advocate local resources, the raising of domestic revenue. What's another important matter that why can't we recognize some of END's success, like in the recruitment of health workers, 11,200, and the teachers, 30,000 or so. Now that's recruitment, not employment. This is done yearly. All institutions will do the annual recruitment. This is to cover for those that have retired, those that have quit, those that have resigned, those that have left on medical grounds. So you have to do an annual. PF didn't regard this as news because it's a recruitment. The PF relied on job creation, where new jobs are created in industries, where new jobs are created in manufacturing entities, in industrial activities. That is what you call job creation. Those are the new jobs. The recruitment is just a replacement. That's why it's called recruitment. So the police do their role. Zambia, police intelligence, they all do these recruitments annually. But for the UPND, they want us to stand on and applaud the recruitment. If I give you the statistics that were done by the PF, you find that there is not much difference, except that, of course, they did a large number at once. Between 2017 and 2021, the PF employed 35,000. 35,000. Yes, it could be a period of 4 years, but 35,000 were employed. So probably the issue with the PF is they never sang such a loud song about these recruitments like our brothers are doing, where it shows like it's a fresh matter.
All right. Okay, before we go straight to what we are looking at this afternoon, next year you'll be going into the convention. I know you are one of the hopeful candidates aspiring to be the next Patriotic Front president. How well are you prepared? How is the preparation going?
Well, we have a calendar. We have a target of 1st March 2023. Recently, the Central Committee issued some partial calendar. That first, they have to approve the guidelines for campaigns. So the campaigns are not official. And then there's a constitutional conference that has to be held to resolve all the outstanding issues in our country, to ensure that the conference is held under environment that makes us stronger, that makes us emerge more united, that doesn't disenfranchise any candidate. So we are still in the preparatory stages.
All right, dear viewers, the number you're using is 0979716731. You can call, you can also send us your text and be part of this particular program.
Right, I don't know if I should call you President. Ambassador Mwamba. Right, Ambassador Mwamba, to jump right into our topic of discussion this afternoon, we are talking about the abolishing of death penalty and defamation of the President law. And President Hakainde Hichilema last week did assent to a penal code amendment number 25 of 2022 to abolish the death penalty as well as the defamation of the President. How have you received this development as a party?
Well, welcome development. Any advancement to freedom of our people, freedom of the country is welcome. Criminal defamation of the President, I have been on record for its abolition. It takes away freedom of conscience, freedom of expression, and freedom of the press. I felt that insults should never be criminalized. To feel so strongly about it, you can take me to a court. Even now, if you insult anyone, you can be taken to court. You can be taken for insulting a person, but to criminalize it, to make it a state crime, that is where our opposition was. On freedom of expression. And this law has consistently been used to oppress the opposition. One government after the other, even this government was quick to use this law political. There are still some of our senior leaders still facing this so-called criminal defamation law, the crime associated with it, in court. Our people are still in court, and members of the opposition are still in court over it. So we hope that President Hakainde Hichilema, other than assenting to this bill into one, he should pardon everyone and direct it to discontinue all the cases under this archaic and bad law. So it's a welcome move for us. We think that it expands the democratic space. We think that, I've always said, look, inform to kumbali, and inform to make it a crime in the manner they did. And let me emphasize, it doesn't mean that the civil laws around this defamation remains a civil offense, and you still can take anyone that injures your reputation, injures your character, you still can take them to court, except that it's no longer a matter between the state and you, it's between individuals.
Right, let us speak a call, Ambassador. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon. You're through to Pulse Nation. Hello? Yes, Mr. Kachigongo.
I'm very well, my brother. Good afternoon.
Talk for us. I'm calling from Livingston.
Thank you very much.
We can't talk ourselves, but talk for us. What is with you? Please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kachigongo. Dear viewer.
Don't fear. What are you fearing? What are you fearing? Don't fear.
All right. Thank you so much. Dear viewer, the number that you're calling us on is right at the bottom of your screen. That is 0979-716731. Do not forget to also catch us live on our Facebook page. It is Millenium TV Zambia, as well as on the top star decoders on channel 95, and be part of the conversation. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon. Wino mwawamba shani mkwai?
Millenium.
Mkwai, amashina neko mletu mina?
Davis Bando.
Yes, what Davis?
Why? They that you are abolish death penalty. You think I'm a village together.
Village sticker.
But I can only bond them on Abu.
Mkwai.
I want to be sure. We want to be sure for Sana. Abona rebona umfa wino sana mtwalile po twazawela futi mu buteko ibo butremo na tapale na mu butremo fo batofo barebe pawa nto tapali batwa expert kwa stobunga 50 kwa chata ku stobunga 200 kuno kapi mbatwala kala sana ona le wa kwen tripanch kwa makasaye ni
Totela wa Davis.
Kuna kutazala kuna watazala tawafora 2 months.
Right, thank you, Davis. Right, Ambassador Mwamba, just coming back to you. The abolishment of the defamation of a president law, don't you think this is going to now allow people to express themselves to an extent, or maybe over-abuse their freedom of expression?
No, not at all. The two are not related. Even when there was this law, people were still not that they were not aware of it. We are aware of it. We just have to grow our tolerance levels. We grow things that we should understand. People who might use strong language. Personally, I would never use any strong language with or without the law. I can deliver my point without insulting you. So we have to understand. For me, I call upon interested parties in this process. Let's promote national discourse. Absent of it, that's the idea of how to develop the country. Let's discuss ideas of how we can uplift the lives of our people. That should be our primary focus, not the insult.
Now, away from the UPND, also taken the step of abolishing the defamation of the president law. Even under the PF, we did see a lot of people that abused their freedom of expression. Actually, under the PF, it was even worse because people were not even free to express themselves as much as they're expressing themselves under the UPND administration. And though we've seen a couple of arrests even under the New Dawn administration, we did see a number of arrests even under the Patriotic Front. How come under the PF we did not see this law being enacted?
I don't understand when they say there is no freedom, like I was saying, that people could be gagged. Look, I saw President Hakainde at all radio stations, TV stations. He issued some of the strongest language against President. And it's rare that he was arrested. So we shouldn't assume that the assertions that what was occurring then did occur now. We've seen our leaders arrested now, like Chinda, whoever, they've arrested so many people. For me, I'm glad that this law has been taken away. Coming to the death penalty, there are concerns there. If you look at our commission of inquiries that have been set up over the years, whether it was Mwanakatwe in 1990, whether it's the Mvunga Constitutional Commission Review in 2001, whether it is Mwamba Commission in 2006, 2007, we have seen again and again our people oppose the abolition of death penalty. They felt that when life is taken away, through the judicial process, life should be atoned by the death penalty. Our people refused, even assertions again and again, where they were advised that, look, we have to modernize the state, freedoms and rights demand that as a modern democracy we have to abolish the death penalty. Our people refused. The second item of concern is the death penalty provided for in the Constitution, in Article Part 3 of our Republican Constitution. That matter cannot be glossed over. It means that amendments have to be done through the Constitution, because the right to life is provided for in the Constitution. And what we call derogation, where there are circumstances under which life can be taken away, is also provided for in the Constitution. So just to amend subsidiary law and to assume that you've taken away the death penalty, it may not be true. In fact, one of the long hindrances, because remember, we haven't carried out any death penalty since 2004. Other statistics are saying since 1994. Other statistics are saying 1997. But we have not, the presidents have not signed death warrants for these that have been sentenced to death since 1994. And no one has been put to the gallows. So there's been agitation. No one is going to be killed anyway, although they are sentenced to death. There are crimes that they commit, capital offenses that attract death penalties. So why don't we abolish it in the law? The hindrance has been the Constitution. So the UPND have done a shortcut, where they've just amended the subsidiary legislation under the Penal Code. This is a matter of contest for our lawyers. They have to discuss, and constitutional lawyers especially. But the issue has been we needed to amend that derogation that is provided for under the Constitution. We just can't amend it in the manner and amend it. I know it's a good thing among progressives, but you also have to be sensitive that our people have said, no, leave the death penalty there, especially for people that take away, that kill our people, that kill our children, that come and cause terror, cause rape, armed robbery in our homes. Leave the death penalty for those crimes. And so we are ignoring the wishes of our people to the benefit of modernizing our democracy. But the modernity of our democracy must be in tandem with the feelings of our people.
All right. Just maybe for clarity's sake and for the people that are watching us to also get maybe your point, would you say that the UPND taking a step to amend the death penalty is a good move or not?
We've always wanted it. That was my point. is that this question has been put to Zambians through the various constitutional review commissions, where they has asked that we need to modernize our state, we need to embrace these freedoms and rights, and we need to promote a culture of democracy. And the issues of death penalty is archaic. It is deemed as archaic by modern democracies. But our people have refused. Just like our people have refused the removal of Christian declaration. There are certain things our people have consistently refused. One of them is the issue of death penalty. Our people have refused LGBT rights. It doesn't matter how much you persuade them. You tell them, no, we are a democracy now. We require that some of these things are accepted. Our people have refused again and again. So even when we reform our laws, where we are adhering to international standards, we have to be sensitive to what our people are saying. Besides, we are mere servants of our people. We are mere governors on behalf and in trust of our people.
All right, Ambassador Mwamba, I think, dear viewers, the number you're using to call us is 0979716731. The abolishing of the death penalty and defamation of the president law. That's what we are discussing right here on Pulse Nation this afternoon. So the number you're using is already there on the bottom of your screen. We're just going to pick some calls. Hello, caller. Hello, caller. Hello. Dear viewers, kindly reduce the volume on your TV set when you call. Hello, caller, you're through to Pulse Nation. Your name and where you're calling from. Hello? Yes, we can get you, sir. Your name and where you're calling from. Your name again, come again. Hello? M-Quai.
Iyo mlenda ya death penalty. Aho no kwikumyako. Ifyo bino koza abantu barakiro ifitara fe kwipana.
Right. Wow, from Kaito Atotela. Dear viewers, the number you're using is 0979716731. The number is already being displayed on the bottom of your screen. Utilize that number. You can call, you can also send us your message and let us know what you think about the topic that we're discussing this afternoon on Pulse Nation. Hello, caller, you're through to Pulse Nation. Yes, sir, your name and where you're calling from. Mina muli bwanji zina na kwamene mutumila.
Oh, kuno ni kumakeni vira kuno.
Atuandani zina?
Wa Crispin konka.
Aka ba Crispin mukamba po bwanji pali topic ya mene tamikwatila.
Awe manga constitution.
Ziko makwambili ya
Mwamba na wewe wakamba tuino aho patio nikushanza chate. Nikushanza chate bwana. Hata hivi nikamba tuino maningi na yenu.
Right.
Wamikia.
Yeah, ziko makwambili wa Crispin. Dear viewers, we're just going to allow 2 more calls, then we proceed with the show. The number you're using is already there on the bottom of your screen. Let us know what you think about the topic that we are having this afternoon on Pulse Nation. 0979716731. That's the number you're using to call. All right, I think let me just come back to you, Ambassador Mwamba. But he
doesn't understand. He assumes that we've put a law to stop insult and insulting the president. No, it's the opposite to Chris. Not from Yapwe Funde. So wakateka kutumwa bashoba no kuwashoba. Tapadi wala mikata. That's what it means. So he was thinking it's the opposite. And on death penalty, like you saw the other gentleman, he said the death penalty should remain in place because people have no respect for life. And that has been the views of Zambians. So while we are quick to impress our international community, we should be very sensitive, like I said, to the needs of our country.
All right. Okay. Hello, caller. You're through to Pulse Nation.
All right. We seem to have that caller.
All right. Now, Ambassador Mwamba. Okay. So we have another caller. Hello, caller. You're through to Pulse Nation. Hello? Hello, caller, you're through to Pulse Nation. All right, looks like we've lost that call. Ambassador Mwamba, just coming back to you. We have seen that many people have been convicted because of the defamation of the president law. With this abolishment, are we going to see a free Zambia?
Yes, what will happen is there are cases in court, they'll proceed, but from the date that the president assented the law, there will be no one that will be arrested based on that law, because that law has been. But for those that are serving sentences because of that case, for those that are currently appearing in court, again, the matters will proceed because the law doesn't apply what we call retrospectively. It begins from the day that it has been signed. Free Zambia, for me, this law is for the tolerance of us. And we should remember that criminal defamation for ordinary citizens also still remains. It has to be amended too. There is a Cyber and Security Act of 2021 that was passed. Beautiful law, but there are some articles there, some sections that are not favorable to our democracy that should be repealed, in my view, because they take away freedoms of our citizens. If you look at the substance of that Cyber and Security Act, it's extensive. We have a law for the first time that attends to the cyber laws and cyber crimes and the cyberspace. It creates various institutions, councils and advisory units to deal with the issues of the cyberspace. But there are provisions, like I said, that take away freedom of expression. Those, in my view, should be killed.
All right, now with the move taken by President Hakainde Hichilema, as opposition, are you appreciating the fulfillment of campaign promises, because this was his campaign promise in 2021?
So many campaign promises he has not fulfilled. That's to praise him on one or two. It will be too early. I think let him attend to the economy. I want to Swahili Christmas. The issue of the economy remains one of the biggest crises. We've seen instability in the last 2 months in the exchange rate. It was at 15, it's grown to 15. Now it's at 17, going to 18. He needs to attend to that issue. We need to grow exports. We need to attend to agriculture sector. There are so many things that the president has to do that it would be too early to praise him. In fact, he praises himself. So we leave it to him to praise himself.
But therefore, one sound watch
The Bible calls for humility. Let others sing your successes. Let others trumpet on your behalf. But the president just praises himself. He assumes we are very lucky to have him as president. He should be lucky that he's our president, not the other way around.
All right. Ambassador, all right, we have a caller. Hello, caller, you're through to Pulse Nation. Hello? Hi, afternoon, you're through to Pulse Nation. Your name and where you're calling from? Isaac. All right, thank you so much, Isaac Kundoloko. All right, coming back to you, Ambassador Mwamba. But then about abolishing the death penalty is not even important. Imagine
Yes, like I said, our people are very, because they're Christians. Remember, the death penalty is also a law that comes from the Bible. So, not important. Well, it is very important. It's very important. That's why it's made international news, because for the international watchers, those are good indicators when you are free in your democratic space. They will welcome such a country, and President Hakainde received attention for these two pieces of legislation passed. But priority for our people is food on the table. Create employment, support the entrepreneurial ideas, create an environment where they can succeed, avoid using law enforcement agencies to punish our people or your political opponents. Create an environment where democracy thrives. Don't use the Electoral Commission of Zambia to steal electoral seats from your opponents. Be fair in your approach. That's what our people want. They want a thriving and prosperous Zambia.
All right, Ambassador Mwamba, now there are laws such as the Cyber Security and Cyber Crimes Act. Cyber Crimes Act, it also infringes the freedom of expression. Now, for Zambia to be free, is it prudent that this act is repealed?
So, the larger scope and larger aspect of the Cyber Crimes Act of 2021 is okay. Like I said, we need to repeal only certain sections that hinder freedom of expression. But if you look at the entire law is very good. It creates organs of the state that do not exist, because most of our laws were made before the rise of internet and the rise of social media. So the cyber law comes to attend to those issues. For example, there was no law about to attend to cyber crimes and crimes committed on the internet. There was no way of even prosecuting people properly, you know. So the law has now been enabled. But like I said, there are some provisions that require repeal, those that infringe on your right to privacy and your right to freedom of expression.
Right, Lovisa.
Right, Ambassador Mwamba, now moving away from our topic of discussion this afternoon, we are also doing a 2022 wrap-up for how the UPND has performed in terms of governance. And as a PF presidential hopeful or candidate, would love to get from you how you would rate the governance system under the UPND in the year 2022.
They've done very badly. They've repeated the mistakes of the past. They've engaged themselves in acts of corruption. We've seen grand scale of corruption re-emerge. We've seen failure of systems. We've seen victimization of civil servants, those under the police and ordinary civil servants.
Are you attributing this to the Patriotic Front?
No, to the UPND.
The you say the repeated mistakes of the past?
Yes, of course. The PF made mistakes. You are right. The PF made mistakes. I've always stated that President Hakainde Hichilema should be a very lucky president because he has 6 past presidents to learn from. But he doesn't seem to learn. He doesn't understand that there are mistakes that were made by previous governments. He doesn't understand that there are things that Zambians frowned upon that he needs to correct. And to allow those mistakes to emerge is failing to learn from the history, including the mistakes of the Patriotic Front. So we take caution. He's losing support and goodwill so quickly because he's failing to attend the issues of the economy and to electoral promises. You cannot say I'm reforming the judiciary and the judiciary should be independent. Then we see like what we saw on Kabushi and Kwacha. You can't say law enforcement agencies will be professional. Then we see the abuse of law enforcement agencies where they're used as tools to target the opposition. You cannot say we have stopped corruption and then we see grand acts of corruption in fertilizer procurement and other sectors like what occurred at ZESCO, where they gave over $107 million to foreign entities for these wooden poles, and the process wasn't even transparent. So there are the crises we've seen at Ministry of Health. So you can't appear that you've come to resolve the crisis of Zambia, and yet you are failing in every department.
The president, in his presidential speech, did allude to the fact that there was a delay in the distribution of farming inputs because they did inherit a broken system from the Patriotic Front, and this is why there's been those loopholes and the delayed distribution of farming inputs. Do you agree?
Those are lies. He found a perfect system where fertilizer, and other inputs were delivered by May. They were in districts and provinces, in warehouses and storage sheds. In May, before your farming season begins in October, is that a broken system? You know, his government does an advert, then they cancel the advert and replace them with their friends. Is that what our Zambian people said? Zambians said some of this rot have to be left behind. The corruption should be left behind, not be repeated. You can't say this government, Edgar Lungu's government was tribal, yours is double tribal. You cannot. So he's failing to learn from the past mistakes. There is a very dim view of the so-called achievements. I rate him very, very poorly and his government. Maybe 3 out of 10. And the 3 is just CDF. The 3 is the recruitment of teachers and health workers. And the 3rd one could probably the IMF bailout, which they haven't even handled well. The rest is failure, failure.
When we talk about, the broken system, let's talk about, let's give an example of the health sector. Even when the Patriotic Front was in office, we did see a lot of issues arising from the health sector. We did see shortage of medicines. It could have not been as grave as it is now, but we also saw corrupt cases when it came to the procurement of expired drugs. There were issues of condoms that were expired as well. Even the issue of honeybees. Would you agree that maybe this is why the situation at the Ministry of Health or in the health sector has worsened currently?
No, not at all. You will have isolated cases, but the Ministry of Health was one of the most efficient systems. The World Health Organization, WHO, recognizes there will be drug shortages, equipment failure, there will be shortages of lab reagents, but it puts them at 80%. You should ensure that at least these hospitals are stocked up to 80%. That's a minimum standards, 80%. This government is doing between 40 and 50. That's utter failure. So, because those are lives, those translate to lives. So, prescription what happens to them? They're likely going to die. If they will get healed, it's a miracle from God, but they'll likely die. How many lives have been lost the last 1 year? They abolished procurement system at Ministry of Health and say we are transferring the powers to the Zambia Medical and Medical Supplies Agency, ZAMSA. And ZAMSA has taken 1 year to learn the process. These are lives of our people. These are lives of people being lost. You cannot gamble with life in the manner they've gambled.
In as much as the Zambian people or different stakeholders might argue to say the medicines in the hospitals is at 21%, but we've seen the Minister of Health, Madam Sylvia Masabo, also saying that the medicines in hospitals is at 65%.
Well, our own report, commissioned by Parliament, puts it at 53%. There was a report done by Parliament, headed by their own chair, the Lukulu MP, who's the chair of health under UPND. As the report is very revealing on the failure of lack of medicine across the country for a period of 9 months. So I cannot bury my head in the sand the way Madam Sylvia Masebo wants to bury her head, refusing the statistics. Our people are saying there are no medicines, in hospitals. She keeps on saying there are medicines, I was laughing at the president yesterday when he went to Choma, and he goes to Choma General Hospital and urges the nurses and other health workers not to steal the medicine. Even for social media, we all laugh. Attend to the medicine first. Let the medicine be stocked. Then we can talk about the theft. So you see our leaders are distant from the facts. How does it talk about medicine theft when there are no medicines in the first place? So that's a dismal failure we are attributing to the UPN. It doesn't matter how much they thump their chest that they've achieved. They had an opportunity the first 30 days, the first 90 days, the first 100 days, the first 6 months. We are 1 year, 4 months. I recognize they have a mandate of 5 years, but at the rate they are going, they are out of the race. Because if you are doing a 42-kilometer race or 21-kilometer race, and at a certain clock, you are so far behind, we can predict your end.
Right. You've touched a lot on the issue of the economy not stabilizing, the issue of the inflation rate. We saw that when the New Dawn government came into power, the inflation rate did come down to a single digit. Now, don't you think that is something that we should applaud the new government about?
Well, you know, an economy that is improving on paper is not an economy at all. So for our colleagues at Bank of Zambia to tweak and tweak to numbers to ensure that we have single-digit inflation, because there are certain tricks they are doing. For example, they put regulations that suck out money in the economy, that reduces money supply. And remember, our contractors and suppliers to the tune of over $3 billion have not been paid. And this government is borrowing heavily from the markets to run its government. There's no money. So the inflation is not as a result of economic improvement.
Isn't borrowing what the Patriotic Front also did engage in?
Yeah. Let me answer that by saying the lack of economic activity also is attributable to your single-digit inflation. Because Papa Christmas, I want to go to the fireworks. So the inflation rate will be low. Rice, your inflation rate will be low. It's not attributable to economic fundamentals. It's not that you're exporting. It's not that you've created jobs. It's not that the economy is booming. Therefore, your fundamentals.
But we've seen prices of goods on the markets also stabilizing because the inflation rate has come down to a single digit.
That's not true. In fact, the joke on the market is if inflation rate under PF was at 22 and yours is at 9%, why are goods and services going up? Why is the price of milk keep on going up if your inflation rate is at single digit? They say no, the rate at which it is changing is far slower than under the PF. It was at 22%, now it's 9%. Those are jokes. Our people don't understand those jokes. Our people want things to be cheap. Our people want things to be fair. Our people want, in the night, to put food for their children on the table. They want, when they look for jobs, the jobs are available. They want, when they farm, that fertilizer and other inputs will be available. That is the economy our people understand. So this business of saying your inflation rate is single digit, our people don't understand.
The president, when he addressed the nation again last week, Tuesday, he did show a graph of how the economy of Zambia has moved from the time of the MMD through to the Patriotic Front and now under the New Dawn administration. And we did see when he showed us the graph that under the Patriotic Front, the economy of the country was sinking, and then now under the New Dawn administration is beginning to rise again. Don't you think the New Dawn government is doing enough to see that the economy of the government
I can use that graph. I can use that graph myself, his own graph. The rise has nothing to do with the president. The decline, in fact, you need to look to the literature of both World Bank and IMF. You'll understand why we had the decline. First of all, we had those major natural calamities. The drought in 2015, 2016, the drought 2017, and drought 2019. And the big one, the COVID-19 in 2020, which allowed our economy to dip, to be under negative. It was not out of mismanagement. All economies in the world went under negative, including the economy he admires, the US or UK, New Zealand and Canada. They all were in 2020 negative, like Zambia was. It had nothing to do with management or mismanagement of the economy because of the COVID crisis. The entire production and value chain for the entire world shut down. There were no economic activities around the world. That is why they registered the negative growth. And he thinks that it's corruption that made the economy steep. That's what he attributes it, which is not true. In fact, for the PF, they embarked on one of the most ambitious infrastructure development that has ever been done in this country. Since the 70s, you see these flyover bridges. They were not there just 2 years ago. See the roads and infrastructure. We built a teaching hospital. Has UPND done that? We built borders. He talks about borders. Has he built any? We built schools, 110 secondary schools. We built 650 health posts. One of them, the president was at a site at one of those health posts the other day.
Most of these roads that the PF embarked on constructing, I don't think most of them even lasted a period of 5 years, and now we're seeing them in a very dilapidated state.
You have to cite examples. What I know is that the PF started projects, and the state of this country in the last 50 years has not been attended to. The infrastructural state. But you didn't have a Kenneth Kaunda International Airport. You have an ultra-modern international airport. You didn't have a Simon Wansaka International Airport. You have an ultra-modern. You didn't have these brand new 65 district hospitals across the country. You have them. You can find them. The UPND have been able to employ people because the PF built its infrastructure. The UPND is able to employ teachers because the PF expanded up to 14,000, classroom spaces. So probably the PF didn't tell their story like the UPND did. If the UPND were to dig a toilet, the whole world will know that they've dug a toilet. Because they want us to celebrate even achievements that are not there. The president was opening Mwami border post, ultra-modern Mwami border post. Who built Mwami border? The president was in Winilunga commissioning a fruit canning factory. Who built the fruit canning factory? So all the projects that the president, his Minister of Defense, has been commissioning, the milling companies done under Defense and Security. It was a plan, commissioned, built by the PF. So the Minister of Defense is there, commissioned one in Petauke, one in Impika, one in Choma. They didn't happen by rhetoric. They happened by planning and execution. And we wish that this government can drop their rhetoric and begin to do the doing.
All right.
All right, Ambassador Mwamba. Now, earlier on before you joined us on SAIT, I was talking to UPND Chairperson for Mines, Honorable Percy Chanda, and he released a press statement today where he was saying PF must apologize to the people of the copper belt over Mopani and KCM, saying that you left these two giant mines at a mess. What can you say about this?
Oh, the UPND are very lucky. I can't see any government in this world that would turn giant mines to be state-owned. They are state-owned at the moment. That's a big plus. Most of these mines are held by outsiders and foreign entities. They had a start. The heavy lifting was done for them. But they are stalling. They want the mines and their value to go down. So then they can find their equity partner. Remember, the UPND believe in foreign investment. The UPND believe that a foreigner will come and save this country. They are preparing those mines to be sold at a devalued price. That's why they've done nothing with the mines for the last 1 year, 4 months. Because the more they stay, the decay there is to the mine assets, the more difficult it is to restart the mines. They are reducing the price of the value of those mines. That is why our people in the copper belt are agitated. They want to protest because they don't understand why government is not attending to the issue of the mines. Why isn't Mopani in production? ZCCMIH, which is the minority partner, has money. They've just been given $193 million from the KCM deal. VAT refunds to KCM and their share $193 million. I saw the president boast about this, but without explaining. So they have $193 million. Why don't they pump that money into KCM? They are the current owners of those mines. Why don't we remove the liquidator and allow resolve those issues? So we think that it's calling the back footing, the failure to move fast on Mopani and KCM is a gimmick. We saw it in the 90s. Where our mines were said to be gobbling up to $1 million a month. And they said the lifespan was only 15 years, and some of the mines began to flood. This was in preparations for us to sell the mines for a song. We have seen this tactic being repeated on Mopani and KCM. Our people in Chingola, in Kitwe, in Shilawombwe, they've lived this tale, they've lived this story. They know what this government is doing. That's why they want to protest. They don't want to protest because they want to please the PF. We are not miners. It's our people that are miners, that have seen this game played again and again. And they know that if this government is committed, we can have massive production. under Mufan to take advantage of the current copper prices. You know, we can have huge production under Mopani. We can open up that smelter and produce from ore from the DRC. You just have to make those decisions, and unfortunately, we're not seeing those decisions.
All right, Ambassador Mwamba, I think on this part, last but not the least, do you think it would be a good idea to bring back Vedanta to Konkola Copper Mine?
No, not at all.
Why do you say so?
Very strongly against Vedanta. When Vedanta took over the mines, first they bought the mine cheaply, they recouped their investment within 3 months, and for 20 years, they paid no taxes. Okay? They declared losses. They devalued the assets of KCM. They never invested. They had started some investment under Konkola Deep Mine, but they never brought fresh investment. They were using just the money from KCM, and they have a bad record. Every year when our ministers and the presidents pushed Vedanta, Vedanta would always, they had that magic number, we'll give you $1.5 billion. We are investing $1.5 billion. I was looking at their statement from 2008. That $1.5 billion never came. Every time there was pressure on KCM that wasn't doing nothing, it was engaged in mining activities, either just checking the slags or importing from the Congo the ore. And our people were concerned that little investment was being done in actual mining and in the life of the mine. They were actually degrading the mine. They'll just say, we are bringing $1.5 billion investment, and the newspapers will run the headlines. That story has been there from 2008. Even now, when they want to come back, they're still prancing that figure. $1.5 billion will give an increment to our people, will pay the suppliers, things they never did. Why should you listen to them?
But don't you think this time around maybe things can change?
It's Katuria. The husband, he beats you, he doesn't buy food, he beats children. Do you think he has changed? Come on.
All right, Ambassador Mwamba, let's also assume maybe, let me just say, what if maybe the new Don government decides to bring back Vedanta? What would this mean to the people?
It will be at their peril. It will be at their political peril. They have a right to do whatever they wish. Right. Against the advice of our people, against the advice of stakeholders, if they wish to please Vedanta, if Vedanta sponsored them for their campaigns, we have no idea. If they wish to bring them, let them bring them. But it will lead to political death in those towns where Vedanta operates.
All right, last but not the least, I know I did say last but not the least, but this has just come into my mind just now. The New Dawn government, when they were, when they were sworn into this, in power, they did promise to end, this cadreism, and I know this has, this was one of the issues that made you, to be kicked out of power. And this time around, we are seeing things differently because we're able to experience, cadreism, even when, His Excellency has set one of the policy to end this cadreism. And just recently, we had a story in just here in the Saka where some suspected UPND cadres were getting money from these bus drivers, and they even ended up, destroying, flash buses, and also some other people were being they were injured who were in these buses. What's your take on this?
Cadreism has not ended at all. It's back in markets and bus stops. It doesn't matter how many times the president denies it. It doesn't matter how much time, how many times Honorable Garin Kombo denies it. Cadreism is present. Cadreism is being done. You have to go to Lumumba City Market. Our people are still being levied those illegal fines by party cadres. You have to go to Kurima Tower. You will find that the thugs have taken over and they're charging our customers. Flash bus stops because they have their own mark, their own bus stop. That's why you saw their drivers protest. But what about the silent majority, the others that are using other commonly owned bus station? So the issues of cadres is back. We've seen it, and we saw it at by-elections, the 24 by-elections that were held. We saw the violence. We saw how cadres were transported into Mwense, and that the terror and violence they caused in Mwense, by-election for the council chairperson. It doesn't matter what they say, but these things are back and our people are seeing them. And like I said, the president has had an opportunity to learn from 6 presidents. There's no need to repeat these mistakes. He's fresh from an election that was held last year. President must understand, what did Zambians want? What did Zambians say? How come they gave me this opportunity to rule over this country? What should I deliver to the Zambians? What are their priorities? And in my view, their priorities is the economy, nothing else.
And also the other part, the president has also been preaching about the law of law. Are we seeing this prevailing in our country? Knowing that you've just mentioned the Mwese by-election that we had this year, we also had some by-elections in Kwacha as well as Kabushi.
No, the rule of law, they've scored very, very low. Kabushi and Kwacha, where seats were stolen in collusion with the courts and with the Electoral Commission of Zambia. Seats stolen, something that has never been heard of. Then we saw the deployment of violence on these ward areas where we're having council elections. We've seen the abuse of law enforcement agencies against opposition leaders. That's not a rule of law. We've seen where the men are ruling and the rule, or the law ruling, and that is the president and his government have scored very low on issues of good governance, on issues of the rule of law.
All right, so 2 years from now, where you see the new Don government?
They are limping up to 2026, and I think Zambians will have looked for an alternative then. It could be the PF, it could be a coalition of the opposition, but clearly the people gave this government an opportunity to deliver. And our people, as months go by, realize they were not an alternative to the PF. And our people are exasperated. Those are the calls we receive. Our PF, put your house together. Put new people together. Ensure that you have activities that renew your relationship with Zambians. Work with other opposition leaders. Because that is the message that we keep on giving.
But don't you think they also need enough time? It's too early to judge them, knowing that they've just been in office for
5 years. I alluded to a marathon. That this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. They've got 5 years. The 1 year, 4 months have been a disaster. It's been rhetoric, speeches, no delivery.
Right. Thank you so much, Ambassador Mwamba, for coming.
Thank you, and thank you, ladies, for the opportunities, and to our viewers and listeners. Thank you very much for the opportunity. God bless you. Happy festive period.
All right, dear viewers, that we were discussing the abolition of the death penalty and defamation of the president law. And in studio, we were hosting Mr. Emmanuel Mwamba, a PF presidential hopeful and former Zambia's ambassador to Ethiopia. This is where we've come to the end of our today's edition of Pulse Nation. You've been with me, your host, Martha Malasha, and Lovisa.
Right.
Have you enjoyed?
Yes, Martha, it's been an interesting conversation with the ambassador right here. I'm sure we've a few things, especially from the defamation law of the president, as well as the abolishment of the death penalty. Yeah.
All right, dear viewers, on behalf of all the